Hi guys, welcome back to Barrovian Made. Now before we get into this video, I have an important announcement. We have a new addition to the family. I bought myself a chainsaw. I don't know who let me buy a chainsaw, but I now have one. I'm going to try and make a sawmill for as little as possible. Uh, so far, I've spent £8.50, not including the chainsaw. The chainsaw was £140. £140 I shouldn't really be spending because I'm broke. But if I can get this working, I'll save a lot more in lumber. So let's go ahead and get on with the build. So right now we're going to be making the sort of up and down part where the chainsaw can decide which height it's going to sit at. And what I'm going to do, well, what I've done is I've taken 3 of these, I've cut one of them in half, one for this side, one for the other side. And what we're going to do is glue and screw this one down to here and that one on there. So we have a channel here where our chainsaw can ride in. Just carry on watching the video. I promise it'll all make sense. So I wanted to make this as cheap as possible. So the majority of this build is made out of pallet wood. Right here are some leftover scraps from an outdoor table sort of thing. But I use mostly pallet wood. Well, that ain't no good. Don't buy cheap drill bits. Or cheap tools in general, really, because buy once, cry once. So after we got those 2 rails glued and screwed together, we're going to go ahead and attach them. Now, I'm not trying to make this look very pretty. I'm trying to make it look functional and as cheap as possible. So I'm just going ahead. I'm screwing and gluing everything together, just putting blocks together and stuff. I'm not doing any mortises or anything like that. All I'm really focusing on is making sure everything's square and it's solid and rigid. Now that we have our channel mostly done, we just need a top for it now. But before we install the top and put this on here, we need somewhere for the threaded rod to go into. And we can't just put 2 bolts on this or whatever because it will screw up and down. So we need to add a bearing. This is an old knackered bearing from God knows what, but it fits this M10 rod. So what we need to do is somehow get this to sit in there perfectly. Now, I've never installed bearings into wood before. I don't know how strong it's going to be, but I think for what this is doing, it will be fine. If not, we'll find another solution. Marked off where the bearing's going to fit. It is a couple of millimeters undersized, but I'm hoping I can just push this in there in the vise as a friction fit. So let's go ahead and just drill it in. Saying that, I'm probably better doing this in the vise. Now, you could probably get away with not using any bearings in this build, but I'd really recommend them. It makes it run a lot more smoother and it'll be a lot more rigid. But it's not a necessity, I don't think. Right, so I jumped the gun a little bit. I've gone ahead and I've put 2 bearings in. I put a set in the bottom and I put a set in the top, so we're eliminating the need for a spacer to be able to tighten this up, because we can just tighten it from the top and it will pull on either side and the bearings will still stay seated. What this is basically going to do, this is just a demonstration. This would be the board where we attach our chainsaw, and this is how I'd adjust the height. Just like that. So it was important, because this is a mistake I made, so I'm going to explain it to you. It's important not to have the threaded rod in the middle, because then this, obviously, you'd have to drill straight through all of this, and it'd just be an absolute headache. So if you put it off to the side, then your threaded rod can come down here. Then you can attach something to put your nut on, so you don't have to drill as big of a hole. So make sure this is off to the side and off centered. And yeah, we're going to get started on the inside part now, where the chainsaw is going to sit. This is really testing my mechanical brain, because I have no idea what I am doing, but we're slowly getting there. So to make this backboard a little bit more solid and let it ride up against the outer races of the little races that we made, I'm just gluing some extra bits of scrap plywood that I had laying around. I'm just going to glue them and screw them straight to that board there, just to make it a bit thicker, so it's a little bit stronger, because there is, a heavy chainsaw going on it, and it does make it a bit more rigid, gives it an extra surface to bump up against to ride in the rails. So we're going to glue and screw all them together, get it all nice and solid down. I think I've used like a full box of screws in this project. But anyway, now we're going to use the nut There is an actual name for this. I think it's like a ball nut screw or something, but this isn't a ball nut screw, so I'm not using balls in it. We're just using a nut, and I'm chiseling out a channel for it to sit in. So once I close it all up, that the nut doesn't just spin inside, and instead pulls the carriage up and down. I was a little bit hesitant to use wood for this because I didn't know whether it'd strip out, but it turned out to be plenty strong. So just glued and screwed all that together. Adding it to this board now. I'm adding it to the back though. As you can see, I'm just drilling through to the other side. I'm going to put these screws in a little bit just so the heads are poking out. So I can transfer those holes to the other side. Drill some pilot holes so we don't split the wood because, you know, pine likes a splinter, doesn't it? So, yeah. But it's very important as well that you get the spacing and everything right on this. As you can see, I drew a line right down so I could get it roughly in the middle. And I measured how far the nut needs to sit out from the back of the board, and that's where I chiseled it in at. This part was tedious as hell though, because I put that right in the center, I had to wait until I hand screw it in all the way up until I can get to the top of it, then I could get my drill in it and push it all the way down. But as you can see there, works flawlessly, a lot better than I thought it would. Done a little bit of tinkering off camera. I've made this is what's going to actually hold the chainsaw. I've had to put another bit of plywood just to bump this above this surface here so everything's not rubbing. So we're going to attach this to here, and then this chainsaw is going to sit here like that. And if you can sort of get where I'm coming from, where this is going to stand up straight and it's going to be on a rail, that's how it's roughly going to work. And we have a good probably 18 inches or so of cut capacity, which is, you know, bigger than any logs I'm ever going to cut here, really. I can only really cut what I can carry. We're going to go ahead, screw this down to the sliding plate, make sure everything's nice and square, and yeah, then what we're going to do, which this is going to be the scary part, is I'm going to put some threaded inserts in here, and I need to drill 2 holes into the bar here to make sure that it can, you know, be securely fastened, and then we'll find some other way to strap the rest of this down to this to make sure this doesn't move too much. Last thing we want is this chainsaw jumping off of this and hacking at one of my legs. So we'll have a little think about safety, but for now this is how we're attaching it. So again, we're gluing and screwing all this down together. I might have went a little bit overboard with the screws and the glue here, but I was so worried about this jumping off. But it turned out to be really, really solid, and I could probably have done with half the screws on there. So there was no worries, really. So if you're going to do this, you can use less screws. Here comes the part I don't really want to do, but it's the only way I can think of securing this saw down properly. I'm going to have to drill through the bar. Now, on the video I watched, it seemed that these bars are solid all the way through. They just have a groove. I'm hoping there's no machinery or anything in there. I don't know how much a new bar costs. Hopefully not much, just in case I mess this one up. But I need to stop stalling and drop a bit of oil on there. I'm just using normal high-speed steel drill bits here, but when I tell you this steel was hard, it was hard. I don't know if this is hard on tool steel or what the hell this steel is, but she was pretty tough to get through. I was snapping drill bits, blunting everything, wasn't working at all. Oh, well, there goes the drill bit. This is carbide. Maybe this will do it. I don't know if this is carbide because this little step drill only cost me £36 at the time that I bought it. So it might be a heavy metal mixture, but it managed to get through it. But even using this, it still took a very long time to punch through. And so yeah, if you're going to drill through a chainsaw bar, make sure you have some carbide on hand. I probably should have done this without the chain on and taken the bar off of the chainsaw, because I'm going to have to fully clean this now to make sure I don't get any metal chips stuck in my chain. Last thing I want is for it to get stuck in my chain and then the chain to snap and wrap around my arm or something. So I'm not going to do it right now, but before I put this all back together and do my first cut, on anything. I'm going to have to take this bar off the chainsaw, give everything a good deep clean. So I ran out of that slatted wood, so I went out and I just picked up a bunch of pallets, spent a while stripping them all down, and I'm just making the base of the actual top. What would you call it? The actual part that moves. I'm making the base of it here, and I'm just doing it a bit like a bed structure, just doing struts across, and then later I'll come back and put some pellet wood on top to stiffen it all up. But as you can see, I am leaving about an inch gap from the top. That's where we are going to put it on the rails, and it can slide up and down on the rails. But to make this even cheaper, I'm just using the nails that I got from the pallets. So I'm still using screws for like this part here. I put one nail in it and then I do the rest with screws. But this obviously wasn't strong enough to keep the top from moving, since it's going to be very top heavy with the chainsaw attached to it. So I did come back later on with some thicker beams that I also got from pallets, and that stiffened it straight up, and it was perfectly fine from there. So here we are. I've just cut a bunch of stuff here. When I tell you I'm not trying to make this thing look pretty, I'm only trying to make it look functional. You can really see what I mean here. I know I usually make bespoke furniture on this channel and stuff, and try and like stress about making everything really nice, but this is a tool where it just needs to be functional. I'm gonna whack this thing out once every few months or so, every time I get my hands on a nice log. So I ain't trying to make this thing really pretty. But I will tell you, working with this stuff, rough wood, and moving it all the time, got my hands sore. I thought I had tough hands because I'm because I'm a woodworker, but usually after I get all this rough material and stuff, it's basically sanded and planed straight away, so there's not like much roughness to it. But yeah, this wore my hands down. Right, so we have the rail all built. I did that off camera because, well, it's just two boards together with some slats in between. I got some more pallet wood. I cladded all this, put these on for some support. I also made this little turny handle thing off camera. Really easy just to chuck this in the drill chuck and, well, like use it as a lathe. So got that. Got our little winch. We got everything moving. I did a dodgy test cut yesterday. It worked fine, but there were some issues. One of which I'd like to find another way to support the chainsaw. It's sturdy on there at the minute, but it's still scary. So I'd like to have a second a second plan just in case those threaded inserts rip themselves out. I need to figure out. Well, I don't need to figure out. I've already come up with a plan. I've bought some stuff. I've got some eye screws that I'm going to put along here and down here to direct the rope. So when I turn this, it's not trying to pull this forward like that and trying to push it over. It's going to pull from the bottom, pull it that way instead. I've got this little pulley, so I can put that on the end. Take, so I think for like every rotation. Oh, hang on a minute, I'm doing maths here. Basically, I think this will take the force in two, but I'll have to do double the amount of pulling the rope, if that makes any sense whatsoever. I don't even think you even need this, but I thought might as well. So yeah, I'm gonna quit talking. I'm gonna hurry up and put all this together, and we'll see if we can make a decent cut. Ah! God damn it! I'm gonna stop using that. I don't think this would be a Barrovian Made video if I didn't hurt myself a few times. What was happening there is I had a little hook thing to help me screw in these eyelets, and it just kept breaking on me, and not breaking on me, but it was catching me finger and trying to wrap it around the chuck. It hurt a bit. But anyway, what I'm doing here is I'm just bending one of the eyes open so I can get that pulley in place. And to better explain what the pulley actually does, basically it makes it twice as easier to pull the rope, but we'll have to spin the handle twice as much. It's a lot easier than just having that run straight to the end, and also it takes any of the twist out as well. Right guys, come have a gander. We've gotten this all set up, and at the moment if you're watching this, this is not your washing line. This is a similar looking line. Don't worry. Now, I've got all these eyes running through all the way down here to guide the rope. Come around here. I've got a pulley there to help with the tension. I'm not actually sure if it's providing any additional force or not, so I might have wasted my money. But yeah, this is how we're going to feed it in. And I don't know if you can hear it, but she's moaning. But we've got it. We can feed our chainsaw in. I might have made the ratio a bit much because, well, one full spin of this is like a good foot or so. So I'd have to sit there just going very slowly like this. But either way, we have our feed done. Now, one thing I wish I made different about this saw is the cut capacity. I'm not going to be sawing much logs, but if you think about it, the center line is how far we're going to be actually cutting. So let me just rewind this. So let's mark out how far we can actually cut and how big of a log we can cut. We'll do the start point here, so the chainsaw will be cutting, starting there, wind this all the way to the end point. And let's take our tape measure and actually measure how big of a log we can actually cut. A little bit just over 3 foot, which isn't very good at all. I made this a 6-foot rail, thinking I'm never going to cut a 6-foot long log. So I've got more than I need. But I forgot to take into account this and the space in between here. So in future I might have to extend it, but it's the exact same, just a bit shorter. So yeah, I mean the logs I have right now, I'll be able to cut on this. But if I want to do anything longer in future, I'm gonna have to remake the rail. But this is a good first prototype, and yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna quit rambling. Let's get cracked on with the build. Right, guys. So here's a solution I came up with. I just got a ratchet strap on there to make sure that part is more securely strapped. Obviously, we have it bolted through the bar as well. So this is really solid on there now. For the trigger system, what I'm going to have is really rudimentary. But if I just take the rest of this ratchet strap, as you can see here, and I'll loop it round. I forgot how I did this. I'll loop it round twice like this. Oh god, I'm dropping everything. But while I'm up here turning the thing, I can pull it and it'll pull down the trigger and the safety at the same time. And if something happens, I can let go of it and it'll let go of it all. So I can just do that. Oh, or it can come off the trigger like that. But that's how I'm going to do the trigger for now. If I can think of a better way, I will do it. But that's all I've got right now. So that's going to be the end of this video. I'll do a cost breakdown just after this little short clip. If you want to see this chainsaw in action, I'll have another video up at the same time. I'll link it at the end of this video and put it in the corner there. So go ahead and watch that if you want to see this chainsaw in action. But thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. So here is the total cost breakdown. We spent £8.50 on an M10 threaded rod and nuts. We spent £2.74 on eye screws, £4.51 on a pulley, £4.49 on some wood screws, and I don't know how much we spent on glue, but let's just call it a fiver. So that brings us to a total of £25.25, not including chainsaw.